Hello friends, up to now we have talked about the physics of gravity field, gravitational, the Earth's gravity field and the numerical problem all about the gravity and gravitational acceleration. Now slowly we have entered into the topics of magnetism and the magnetic field of the Earth, which is also a very complicated field. Not unlike the gravity field, it is not very much of simple things. Too much of complexity is there in the magnetic field. So we'll discuss about the magnetic field of the Earth, how it behaves like a bar magnet, and there will be internal and external field and the sources of it. This is a picture of the external field, and there's a hysteresis loop associated with the magnetization, with the physics of magnetization. So all these things we'll enjoy one by one. So let's first move to our Earth's magnetic field introduction and the source of it. So first, the magnetic field that is observed at the surface of the Earth, it varies in strength and direction with so much of variation. It is horizontal at the equator and the vertical at the pole. If we see the anomaly, it gives the clue to the geometry of the body within the Earth crust and depth to the source of the anomaly. And the deepest source of the anomaly illustrates the depth below in which the rocks are too hot to retain magnetization. That temperature at which the rocks lost their magnetization is called the Curie temperature. And about the 98% of the Earth's field is of internal field, which is thought to be caused by the liquid metals with outer core, the flow of liquid, that we'll discuss afterwards. And remaining 2% is of external solar origin. So there is a famous theory of dynamo theory. This is associated with the source of internal field, that is there is a thermal motion that maintain the electric current generated in the outer core. The magnetic field are generated due to this fluid motion. So the interaction of the magnetic field with the fluid motion, that illustrates about the dynamo theory, and it is the source of the internal magnetic field. So generally it behaves like an electric dipole, that eccentric dipole that is situated at the Earth center, and there is a slight angle of 11.5 degree from the rotational axis. And with this model, the Earth magnetic field is analogous to that of the bar magnet. And it has in our gravitational field it is very simple, but magnetic field is very complicated, as I already have discussed, and it has secular variation, there is variation with time, several factors. There will be daily, monthly, seasonal and longer period variation in the magnetic field of the Earth. So now we'll discuss about the magnitude and the direction of the Earth's magnetic field. We can compare it with bar magnets. Now see their gravity field, there is the force acts perpendicularly to the surface at every point, and from going from equator to pole there is a very small variation, uh, but whenever we are having at the equator, the magnetic field is 30,000 nanotesla, and at the pole it is 60,000 nanotesla. So there is a huge difference, half of the magnetic field from equator to pole, that means it becomes double at the pole. So you can see there is a bar magnet, the magnetic field lines came out emanating from the north pole and converges to the south pole. So similar to that, the south magnetic pole of the bar magnet acts like a geographic north pole, and there is a small angle between geographic north pole and magnetic north pole. So field line just converges at the geographic north pole coming out from the geographic south pole. So it is a similar like a bar magnet that we can see. Now just like gravitational force of law, we are having the Coulomb's law for the magnetic poles. So the magnetism laws are established by relating the magnetic field by the magnetic poles, and we know the most important type of magnetic field is called the magnetic dipole. And these are the field of two magnetic poles, north poles and south poles, in opposite sense, and that are in very close to each other. This is a magnetic dipole, and we can relate an inverse square law between the two modes, same like a two masses. We are having inverse square law of gravitation between two poles. First one is having strength m1, second one is m2. They are just separated distance r from each other. So the inverse force can be written as the K into P1 into the multiplication of their two pole strain, that will be P1 and P2 divided by the distance of the as the distance they are separated. So we can define the magnetic field. Suppose the one pole is at a one pole is having the value of P and other pole is like a unit pole. So the force exerted by the pole of strength P on a unit pole can be defined as the magnetic field. So that we can written as K into P by R square. So this is the magnetic field. And in SI unit we can have K is equal to mu 0 by 4 pi, that is 4 pi into 10 to the power minus 7, and in CGS unit K is equal to 1. And the unit in the CGS unit that can be written as Gauss. So very famous CGS unit of magnetic field. Generally geophysicists employ a smaller unit, that is gamma. 1 gamma means 10 to the power minus 5 Gauss, that is 10 to the power minus 9 Tesla or Weber per meter square, that is in the SI unit, because the geomagnetic field can be described by this unit specially to just probe the magnetic anomalies. Now we can move to the magnetization and the magnetic field. So in physics we know that there is a spinning electric charge that will produce a spin magnetic moment, which is associated with a current loop on an atomic scale. And if you can refer to the quantum mechanics, that will elaborately discusses all these details about the magnetism, physics of magnetism in an atomic scale. It's a current loop. We know the magnetic moment per unit volume is called the magnetization. We can define it by M. If we place a magnetic material in the external magnetic field, that the total magnetic interaction we can write, it is the value V is modified by an amount mu 0 H plus mu 0 into proportional to M, magnetization. So we can write mu 0 to H plus M. Here H we can write as a magnetizing field which is produced by the current loop inside a magnetization material. So you can see there is an infinite number of in atomic scale magnetic moments are there, each one is having value M. So if we sum them and divide by the volume magnetization, we can get the total magnetization, that is the magnetic moment, total sum of the magnetic moments divided by the unit volume. So it is a pictorial depiction of the magnetic moment. Now we can have intensity of magnetization, that is the magnetization, that magnetization it is called it is proportional to H, we know. So it can be written as the proportionality constant can be defined as the magnetic susceptibility, which is determined by the physical properties of the magnetic material. Generally it is the measure of the degree to which a substance is magnetized by the effect of external magnetic field. We can have all materials that have magnetic susceptibility, some positive value, some negative value, depending on which we can characterize the materials as dia, para or ferro. Yes, we can see if we are applying a magnetization field H, the magnetic dipoles are aligned with respect to the magnetization, that is magnetic dipoles. So this magnetic field is responsible for aligning the magnetic dipole in this direction. And the last example is our ferromagnetism. Here the atomic moments align strongly, this is a magnetic field is applied, and the magnetic moments of spontaneous magnetic moments are in direction with the magnetic field. So the value chi is very strongly positive, few hundreds of the value, that means there is iron, nickel, cobalt, manganese, that are the typical example of the ferromagnetic material. Now we reach to the famous our graph, hysteresis graph, that every physics students study. If what will happen to the magnetization if magnetizing field is applied. So whenever we are applying a magnetizing field, that magnetization reaches a saturated value at a particular value of H. That value corresponds to the picture in our last slide, that all the moments are aligned with respect to the applied field, and we are having strong magnetism. Next case, if the magnetizing field is 0, suppose there is a magnetizing field is 0 at that point, so what we can expect, that there will be no magnetization, but there will be some residual magnetization. Ferromagnetic material retains a part of the induced magnetization, and that magnetization can be called as isothermal or remnant magnetization, that MRS. Okay, now this is our hysteresis curve of the ferromagnetic substance. Now at a particular value of AC, means coercive force, that induced magnetization cancels the remnant's magnetization, and at that point, so the original net magnetization is 0 for a value of AC. And if we repeat the process in a stronger and reverse field, we can found a back field, that HCR, that is the coercive of the magnetization, which gives a 0 remnant magnetization, so that residual remnants is 0. So this is actually, this curve is a non-linear curve, hysteresis curve, and in many experiments you can encounter this. As I have carried out experiments in the plasma, I found this type of curve in doing plasma experiments when I varied the external voltage, and that I just found it as a one hysteresis curve. In one of our paper also we have reported it. It's a very important in this in view of the nonlinear physics, nonlinear dynamics. That, and now we can say this ratio HCR by HC, that also depends on the grain size, and the rock forming minerals can have sometimes a natural remnants magnetization. Now in rock, what type of magnetization we can encounter? It's induced magnetization. So pictorially what we can say, there is a if the external magnetic field of the earth is there, that is the ambient field, that can cause the rocks to be permanently magnetized. So this is our, and when we take out this field, ambient field, it loses the magnetization. So it is called the induced magnetization of the rock. Now apart from induced magnetization, there will be remnant magnetization is also there. So what we can see, the same peaks, when we apply the ambient magnetization, there will be induced, but in absence of the ambient magnetization, there will be some magnetization in the rock. Actually, when the rocks are formed, the magnetization is stored in the rock, that as a remnant magnetization. If the earth magnetic field, the anomalies, they are caused by induced or remnant magnetization, and the total magnetic field that we can observe, that is ambient magnetization, the sum of induced magnetization along with the remnant magnetization. And if we do not have any remnant magnetization, then that ambient magnetization, that magnetic anomaly can be written as the total magnetic field minus the ambient field. So you can just remember that is analogous to a gravity anomaly. When we just subtract our total gravity anomaly from the theoretical gravity value, then we can get a gravity anomaly that is similar to that magnetic anomaly. Now that is induced magnetization. It is a function of the shape, orientation, geometry and the magnetic susceptibility of the body. So much factors are dependent. Now we move to the fact very slowly, geomagnetism history. So men are systematically observing the magnetic field of the earth for so much of years, 500 like years. At first, Sir William Gilbert has published an article, D-Magnet, where he show that the compass needle point towards the north magnetic pole, because the earth itself appears to behave like a large magnet, and the earth's magnetic field is roughly equivalent to what would be generated by a bar magnet if we place it at the center of the earth and orient it along the rotational axis of the earth. 19th century, Carl Gauss confirmed that the magnetic field could not be caused by the magnetic source external to the earth, means that it is primarily dependent on the internal source. The source is internal. Now today also the magnetic methods are most commonly used geophysical method, which is very cheap and relatively easy, and some few corrections must have to be applied. But in spite of having these advantages, the interpretation of the magnetic anomaly is very much complicated things. As we have told in the gravity chapter, the ambiguity is there, and that ambiguity is prominent in the magnetic and magnetic anomaly more than the gravity anomaly. It suffers a lack of uniqueness. Now we move to the geomagnetic elements. It is a very common question, or very common type question in the exam, so you must follow this. This the total magnetic strength is given by F, and it can be specified by the two angles, that is angle of inclination and the declination. The angle between the magnetic meridian and the east component, horizontal component, the magnetic meridian, that can be written as the angle of inclination. And the H here, H is the horizontal component of the magnetic field. Its direction is along the magnetic meridian. So some relations we can apply, that H can be written as the F into cos I, that the component of F along this direction, and Z, that is the vertical component of the magnetic field, that is the F sin I. So I can be written as the inverse tan of Z by H, and the total magnetic field square can be written as the horizontal component of field square plus vertical component of the field square, that H can be written as x square plus y square plus z square from this figure. Now with the assumption of axial dipole model, we can write the horizontal component can be written as the total magnetization into cos phi by r cube, where phi is the latitude that is related. It is exactly at the double, the vertical component is the 2m. As we have already discussed, at the poles the magnetic field is 60,000 newtons, that is exactly double of the amount at the magnetic equator. So that Z is, we can that is a horizontal, that is a vertical component. So the total magnetic field, what we can write, the total magnetic field we can write F is equal to that H square plus Z square. So it just estimated to be like this, root over of 1 plus 3 sin square phi. Let me show. For n is equal to 1, the dipole contributions are there, and n is equal to 2, you can have quadrupole contribution. This total thing, this total formula can be written as a multiple expansion of the geomagnetic potential. Now one by one terms I will be discussing, that this G and H are called Gauss-Smith coefficient of order n and degree m, and P and M is called the Smith potential, Smith polynomials. And that is very, you can remember, that is common to the Legendre polynomial if this term is not there. So with this term, this can be written as associated Legendre polynomial with the degree, and they have the same dimension as the magnetic field. IGRF is very important. This is the international agreed series of global spherical harmonics of the Earth's magnetic field. Sources are inside the Earth's core. So when we are estimating the crustal field, we have to subtract the IGRF, that is theoretical value, from the main field. So the main field is called the internal field, that is associated with the dynamo theory, that is there is a fluid motion is maintained at the Earth's core, is thermal convection, and magnetic field is generated due to a thermal convection, and the fluid, the resulting of the with the fluid motions resulting with the production of the new field. And how the external fields are generated, that the ionized particle in the upper atmosphere and the solar winds, and there is a variation on the time scale from seconds to day, which is recorded continuously in the observatories or in the field. And as I have discussed in the Gauss potential, the most important part of the Earth's field can be found by replacing the value of n is equal to 1. That n is equal to 1 can be think of as a dipole field, which is thought to arise from a two-dimensional circulation, that is liquid motion in the outer core. If we subtract the total value from the internal origin, we can get the contribution from the external origin, and the external origin we can get for n greater than is equal to 2. So for n is equal to 1, we get the main contribution for Earth internal field, and for n greater than is equal to 2, we get the external contribution. They are thought to arise from the various eddy motions. And the magnetic field at the surface of the Earth, it is determined by the internal currents, with smaller contribution due to the external current flowing in the ionosphere and magnetosphere. So pictorially, how we can define it, is the surface of the Earth is the internal currents, and there is the external currents, and in this region we are having the current free zone. It is the surface of the Earth, and J is the external current, which is due to the ionosphere and the magnetosphere current. So from Maxwell's equation, later I will discuss it elaborately. We can write curl of B is equal to some mu 0 J. So J is the current is 0, so we can write curl of B is equal to 0. So from this equation what we can write, the field can be written as the negative gradient of the potential. Okay, so also if we know the potential, that Gauss potential, that like things, we can determine the field by making a derivative. And from we know the Maxwell's equation, divergence of B is equal to 0. We can replace the value of B, we can get the Laplace equation in the current free zone in these zones. Okay, so we know the potentials, so we can express this A in the spherical harmonic problem. That is the potential. So elaborately we have discussed it about the Earth's the internal and the external field and its source. Now little bit more about some temporal variation, that is in the external field of the Earth. There will be secular variation. So if the Gauss coefficients are compared from one epoch to another, there is a slow change can be observed. The energetic rays that will cause the ionization of the molecules in the that means the nitrogen and the oxygen molecules forming an ionized region, they are called the ionosphere. Now the most important part of the external field is the diurnal variation. There is one-day variation of 10 to 30 nanometers. How this happens? There will be ionized molecule in the ionosphere that will release electron, and which acting as a source of external magnetic field that we can detect on the surface of the Earth. And we know our Earth is rotating beneath the ionosphere, that the intensity of the geomagnetic field also fluctuates. So this fluctuation is having a period of 1 day, which is called the diurnal variation. Apart from the diurnal variation and secular variation, there will be magnetic storm. So wherever there is a magnetic storm, we should pause the magnetic observation. It is very intense and strong, irregular and unpredictable behavior, and associated with the solar sphere. So you can see that there is a solar wind and this magnetosphere and the magnetotail. They may help us to deviate the solar wind, or and from help us from the harmful rays of the solar wind. Now at last we will describe the internal field and the source, the spectrum. If we draw the spectrum, this energy density things, what we can get is a very important things, and it has been taken from, let's say, the William Lowry book. So how can we describe it? This is for n is equal to 1, so we are having dipole field, and for core field n is equal to 1 to 14, we are having the contribution of the core field that we can tell as the long wavelength anomaly, so deeper source anomaly. For n is lying between 15 to 40, that's means almost 15 to 40, we are getting the anomaly of the crustal field. So we subtract the main field. In our previous slide we described about the crustal field, how we can get crustal field from the IGRF. So this is called the short wavelength anomaly, because we are just subtracting it from the IGRF and we just eliminate the long wavelength part and get the short wavelength part. And below that for n greater than 40, we are getting some noise level, not useful to our observations. So first crustal core field things, that gets in dipole non-dipole part, then crustal field, and then noise level. That describes the whole of the internal field. And our external field is generated by the currents in the ionosphere and the magnetosphere things. So hope you have enjoyed all our lectures on the internal and the external field and the physics of magnetism. So this is my channel, Physics and Geophysics Learning, and if you just like my channel, please follow all the lectures, and after the completion of theoretical part I will provide all the numerical methods in the magnetic. And please share, like and follow and the comment our channel. Thank you very much.